Hi, boys and girls. I'm Mrs. Baker, and I'm a first grade teacher at Roundtown Elementary School. I am a remote teacher this year, just like you are a remote learner. And I work together with Mrs. Clancy, Mrs. Shue, and Mrs. Rankin. And together we are working really hard to prepare and plan fun things for you to learn and to do at home. And we know that you have been working so hard this year already, especially in writing. And we are so proud of the stories that you are writing. We're enjoying reading the stories and getting to know each of you better by the stories that you share with us. And I am excited because I get the privilege to work with you this week, and we're going to talk about narrative writing every day. So, boys and girls, I want you to think about what you already know as an author. Think about the things that you've already learned from your teacher in class. And we're going to pretty much be putting all these pieces of the puzzle together as we take a look at narrative writing this week. So, I ask you, authors, what is narrative writing? That's right. If you said a narrative story is a story about a time that something happened in my own life, then you are correct. That is exactly the point of narrative writing, to be able to tell a story about something that happened to you. And when you tell a narrative story, and I'm looking at the poster right over here, the first thing I want you to think about is the fact that you are the character in your own story. And so, yes, you're going to use words like I, me, my, and mine because you're the one telling the story. Two, you are writing about a real life event, something that really happened to you. You know what I've learned over the years? That when I try to make up stories about things that happened to someone else or things that I wish had happened to me, it's a little harder to write about. I've learned that authors write best about what they know best. And three, that it's also important to include your feelings within the story, not just always at the end, but along the way. And we're going to talk about that later this week. Four, we're going to make sure that our story is in sequence, that the order of the story makes sense. We call this sequential order. So as I'm looking over here to the left of the screen, I see big words, I can. Every lesson this week is going to start with an I can statement because this is something that we think that you can do. And if you can't do it yet, you will be soon. And so today's lesson is all about I can tell a story about my life. And again, you've been doing such a wonderful job, boys and girls, writing stories about you and things that have happened to you. And you've already talked a lot in your classroom about those stories that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And those are the three most important parts of a story, as you probably already know. So again, as you're thinking about a narrative story, you're thinking about those words that you're going to find within the story that tell that it's a narrative story as opposed to an informational story or an opinion piece. And again, those words may sound a little familiar, but those are different kinds of writing. When we're writing a narrative story or a story about a time that something happened to us, we might see words such as I, me, my, or we, because again, we are the character in our own story. We're also going to write with feelings as we tell about what happened at this particular moment in our life. We might be sad or glad, mad, scared. And again, there are so many other feelings that come up in the stories depending on the story itself. We may also use some sequential words. That's just a fancy name for those tell a story words. Sometimes at the beginning, we might find ourselves using words like first, one day, one time, or in the middle, words such as next, then, but. And even at the end, we might use special words such as last, finally, to end with. And again, these are just possibilities. Sometimes in the classroom, we've had resources to be able to read the room, but please know that your story is going to come from your heart. And so it's going to be very different from everyone else's. I have a story to tell. So I want you to think about all the things that I just talked about and all the things that you've been talking about in your classroom and see if you think that, yes, this is a narrative story about a time that something happened to me, or not quite sure, Mrs. Baker, or no, I don't think this is a story about you. And just to prove that it is, my friends, this is a picture of me around the age of 11 or 12. And so, yes, this story happened to me, but a very long time ago. And this is what it sounds like. One Saturday morning, a long time ago, I was the pitcher on my softball team. First, I pitched the ball to the batter. Then, the batter took a big swing. Next, the ball hit me right in the nose. It hurt. I went to the doctor and he said I had a broken nose. I had to have surgery to fix it. I was not happy that I couldn't play softball for the rest of the season. So, what do you think out there, authors? Is this story a story about something that really happened to me? It is. I'm not making it up. In fact, I could even tell you a little bit more about the doctor who tried to fix my nose, but this is something that really did happen to me. And I know that you've been working really, really hard, boys and girls, these past few weeks to write stories about things that have happened to you too. And I know that you have heart maps. And I also know that probably a lot of those ideas on your heart maps have already been taken up. In other words, you've probably already written lots of stories about what you have on your heart map. And so, just to help, your teachers and I have come up with some ideas or prompts that you could think about writing about today. We have two choices, and you will see these in your daily assignments, along with the posters that I've shared on the screen today to help you think about what a narrative story is and how you can use some of these special words in your stories today. So, one choice that you could write about today is to tell about a time you played outside. And now I have been reading lots of stories from my friends about times at the park, playing football with my dad. So try to think of something else that you've played before. Or you could tell about the best day you ever had. And you might have to think a little bit, but I think that if you really think hard, it will help you come up with a really good idea to write about. And then also on your assignment slide for today, when you open up the narrative writing assignment for today, you'll see what we call a rubric, which is just a fancy word for goals. In other words, you'll notice this rubric growing throughout the week. We're going to start with just today, one goal at a time, and then we'll add them together. And by the end of the week, as an author, you'll be doing so many things in your writing. But today, we really want you to focus on that idea of I can tell a story about my life. And you'll see the teachers, once you submit your writing to us, are going to mark off or click, yes, I can tell a story about something that happened to me. Or almost, because maybe your story started from a time you went to get on a train, but then you started talking about all the trains you know and how you build trains. And maybe that just doesn't really kind of go along with the story. It's a little bit out of focus. So that might be almost. Or maybe you're starting to give an opinion about how you feel about trains. So keep that in mind that the story is all about an event or something that actually happened to you, or maybe not yet. And friends, that's okay too. That just means, you know what? I'm working really hard. I can't do it now, but I'll be doing it soon. And so as you're writing today, friends, keep in mind that a narrative story is a story about a time that something happened. Think about those important words that can help you tell your story, because remember, you are the character. Have fun today writing, and I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Have fun.